Greetings from Bulgaria, I'm Vulkk. With today's video, I would like to talk to you more about my favorite build, which is Biotic, as you can say from the title. This video doesn't contain story spoilers, it does feature some gameplay, of course, because I have some things to demonstrate as I'm describing the abilities. It's also part of my continuing series for Mass Effect Andromeda Beginner's Guides. Link to the series playlists you can find down below in the video description, as well as links to my other playlist with news, other guides, and my first live playthrough. Second one will follow for New Game Plus shortly after I finish the full game in the normal version, 100% completion. This guide is mostly aimed at insanity. However, if you have experience with for example, The Witcher 3, which is another very favorite game of mine, you might notice that just like in The Witcher 3 here, the difficulty levels actually start to merge together later on as you keep leveling, progressing, and earning more money, upgrading your gear, and getting just more experienced. I started the game and finished actually my first playthrough with normal difficulty, and after that switched progressively through hardcore and reached insanity. If you're facing some specific boss types and harder enemies, shielded for example, or heavily armored, you might actually have issues with the Biotic build that I'm going to introduce before you today. But overall, it's a very powerful build, very universal, and combined with some consumables and with some interesting gear that I'm also going to show you, it does make up for a very serious result in you having little to no trouble just breezing through the game, even in insanity difficulty mode. The video is split in a few parts. First, we'll take a look at the passive and active abilities and skills, or as we used to call them in the previous games, powers. Then I'll tell you a few words about my favorite profile, and in the end, you will have a chance to see some gameplay clips where I'm using this Biotic build. Let's begin. First, we'll talk about the skills. As I'm level 48, you can see that in the top left corner, I do have more points than what I actually need to make up for the core upgrades for my Biotic build. Let's start with the Prime ability. If you don't know what Prime and Detonate combo abilities are, I have a separate standalone tutorial or guide video for that to help you learn what the basics about the combo abilities are. My Prime is the Singularity. This is how I've leveled it up. For rank 4, I've chosen to add 25% to the effect radius of the ability. For rank 5, I've decided to add 100% damage versus shields, which is one of the several perks available in the Biotics 3 upgrade skills. To allow you to compensate for one of the biggest weaknesses of the Biotics overall. They're weak against shields and to some extent against armors as well, but specifically against shields, especially without these upgrades here. At rank 6, I've chosen to add 350 area damage bonus. As I've mentioned, this is by default a Prime ability, and this is my one and only Prime ability. It's AoE, it's very effective, it's on a rather short cooldown, which after all the upgrades and all the other perks and boosts, sits on 8-second cooldown, which is fairly low, and you would be able to use it once, probably twice, maybe even 3 times in some longer boss fights and tougher opponents. My main Detonate abilities are Shockwave, Throw, and Lance. I'll start with showing and telling you about Shockwave, because it's by far my favorite Detonate ability due to its AoE effect. For rank 4, where we actually begin to choose one or the other, I've decided to add the 100% damage radius increase. For rank 5, I decided to increase the maximum shockwave distance because my character, being Biotic, is very far from a Vanguard Biotic, for example. Which means I prefer to face my opponents from distance. Not because I can't take them from melee, the gear does allow me this if I wanted to, I just don't prefer the melee gameplay style for Mass Effect Andromeda. At rank 6, I've decided to add 50% to the ability's damage versus armored opponents. In my preferred favorite builds, I usually switch Throw and Lance and sometimes Shockwave. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. First, let me describe Throw. Throw is a unique ability because first it's a default detonate, which means you have to use first singularity and then throw. It's one of the 3 detonate abilities that I use often in my gameplay, and it's my second favorite, first one being Shockwave obviously. Throw has a very strong force, which means if you play smart and if you're able to throw your opponents at a greater distance, you would actually benefit far more from throwing them rather than shockwaving them or lancing them. So what I've chosen from throws rank 4 and going forward. At rank 4 I've decided to add damage and force. At rank 5 I've decided to increase by 25% the recharge speed because I much more value the chance of having the abilities cooldowns being shorter rather than having them doing more damage, because from my experience, at least so far, and I have over 115 hours in Mass Effect Andromeda so far, it's far more fun and useful to have the ability on a lower cooldown so you can use it a second time. For rank 6, I've decided to go for the swift detonation, which gives me 30% combo detonation damage and 25% recharge speed. The next ability amongst my favorite is Lance. Lance at rank 4 gives me 20% damage and 20% force. On the next rank 5, I've decided to add 25% damage versus shields, another boost or perk if you prefer, that adds some passive boost to damaging shielded opponents. The rank 6 for me is going to the knockdown side, which gives 20% increase to damage and force. And as I've mentioned, Shockwave is by far my favorite in combination with Singularity. A quick peek at what other passives and actives I've started building, because level 48 results in a huge amount of skill points. Depending on what your preferred weapon and playstyle is, mine is pistol, and I'll tell you why when I go to the weaponry and armor portion of the guide. You have to upgrade the passives for your prime weapon and for your secondary weapon. Here is a quick sneak peek at what exactly boosts I've chosen for my pistol, which is my main weapon, and what boosts I've chosen for my sniper rifle. The combat fitness and combat tools come as secondary when you are higher level, and if you prefer to stick to biotics, because you might actually go a completely different way for a completely different kind of a build in case you want to switch and be absolutely universal and have an answer for any kind of situation and mob against you. I won't tell you how the Remnant VI gets unlocked, but you don't have it from the beginning, and I don't want to spoil the story behind it. Excuse me. It's actually a very fun and very interesting active ability, so to speak, to have. For rank 4 I've decided to add VI health regen and VI health regen delay reduction. For rank 5 I've chosen to add 100% VI health, and for the most important choice at rank 6 I've decided to allow the VI's beam attack to have a chance to electrically prime enemies for combo detonations. This is the biggest and most important reason for me to have the VI in my permanent favorite and pretty much all of my builds. The tech team support and offensive tech are more secondary options when you have more skill points to spend, because I don't usually play tech, as you can already see, but these passives actually do have small benefit for your teammates. While on that same screen, still, I would like to say a couple of words about my favorite companions. Yes, I, like everybody else, has a favorite companion, and that is Drak. He's fun, he's massive, he's strong, and he's a very decent tank. Quick tip: even on Insanity difficulty mode, you don't really need to manually select, develop, and level up your companions. If you leave them to level up by default, you would still be fine. However, of course, it's more fun, it's more personal, and it's more interesting and different to level up the companions yourself. So this is my tank. I love him because he talks funny most of all, and as I've mentioned already, he's a very solid tank. He is usually my tank. My second companion that I usually pick for my missions is someone in between Zhao and Vetra. I tend to lean to Zhao because, well, they're not too different, and specifically for me and my playstyle, both of these companions don't really change anything significantly. I don't know if it's just me, I have a feeling that in Mass Effect Andromeda the companions don't have the same huge, giant and important impact on both story and gameplay as opposed to the previous 3 games from the series. Zhao is kind of a ranged kind of DPS guy, and he also has a very nice relationship, I should say, with Drak. The two of them have fantastic and a lot of funny conversations during my exploration moments on the Nomad on the ground of the planets. If you want to pick any of the other companions, it's still fine. Yes, I'm avoiding Cora and PB, even though the first and only companion that I've been romancing so far is PB. I avoid playing with her because of her biotic build, and Cora is also another heavy biotic invested companion, so I tend to avoid her. Initially, Lam was my favorite, kind of a tank-ish companion from the first moment, but later on I switched to Drak and I definitely don't regret it. Few words on the profile selection and what you could do. Of course, because this is a biotic guide, I would advise you to go for Adept, and depending on how many points you have invested, at this point you will see that at level 48 I'm rank 4, which gives me a very hefty bonus to all kinds of biotic boosts. And let's not forget that the Biotic Echoes, the second tier or second version of the biotic boost, biotic combos can set off additional explosions on each enemy they touch, is really awesome and really helpful. Obviously, because I have some skill points invested into tech, I would probably pick Sentinel. The other option for me with high enough tier is Vanguard, but as I told you, my playstyle and my build don't really favor melee, and Vanguard profile is more about melee players. So it's either a choice between Adept and Sentinel, and of course Adept is the better choice here, but for some specific situations, because of the tech armor and some of the other perks, you might want to switch to a Sentinel profile. That's why it's good that we do have favorite options. At the moment I do have 2 favorites. I've been switching between all of my favorites all the time, and at some point I found myself with all 4 favorite slots bound to different combinations. It's entirely up to you to decide whether you want to use different favorites, or you would just stick to one and keep changing 1 or 2 abilities from time to time. It's very personal and very versatile, having to play around with the favorites. I'm sitting in front of the loadout station right here on the Tempest, and it's time to show you my gear, specifically armor and weaponry. We'll start with the armor set because there is not much to tell about it. I've chosen to play with the Remnant Reborn, and you can see at level 48 this is the highest tiers I can afford. On the chest piece I've decided to have the fusion mode of rapid deployment, which has a plus 50% to all power recharge speeds. Yep, in Mass Effect Andromeda, I admit, and I was accused a couple of days ago by someone in one of the comments on my videos, I tend to play a lot with my powers and not rely too heavily on the gun that I'm using, even though I'm going to show you in a moment. The pistol I use as a main weapon and the sniper rifle as well are both very powerful and very good to have. The bonuses for my armors are damage resistance, health regeneration and shield regeneration. Of course, depending on what tier you have, the chest piece is always a much higher tier by default because it doesn't have level requirements to craft the highest available. This is the advanced version, by the way. When you craft the first 5 tiers, you will unlock advanced version, which is tier 6 through 10. And for the chest piece, for one reason or another, Barwa has not put level requirements, so I was able to craft the tier 10 Remnant Reborn armor chest piece and wear it for very early on. All the other items have very severe level requirements, and for example, level 40 is required for tier 6, level 50 is required for tier 7, and so on up until tier 10. That's all I can say about my armors. Let me show you my weaponry. The mods are entirely up to you, and I usually don't have the fourth mod slot filled because the only mod I can put there is a scope, and I personally don't like playing with scope. It's a personal decision. Yes, there is a bonus to accuracy or something else if you prefer, but my personal decision is not to go with the scope on pistol because I like it to feel like a pistol, and when you zoom in as if you're using a sniper rifle, the immersion is kind of different and broken in my personal opinion. I told you I don't rely on melee weapon, that's why I have whatever generic item I managed to find here or there. That wasn't really intentional for me to exit. Let me go back into the menu and show you what exactly I'm using. The pistol is really good, and that's exactly the one model I'm using. The Carnifex, at the moment I can craft tier 6, as you can see I'm using tier 5, but there is a very small difference between the different tiers, and I'm waiting and saving crafting materials because it's really expensive to craft this damn thing. It requires element 0, and we know that just like before, element 0 is not exactly easy to stack on unless you have piles of money, which I do. That allows you to go to the first merchant that sells it and buy a chunk of it. My second weapon of choice is the Black Widow sniper rifle. Why? Because it doesn't really make much of a sense to play with a pistol and assault rifle, so the other option for me is obviously pistol and a sniper rifle. You can have a third weapon if you want, and if you don't mind wearing more items and just stacking up on the weight stat, you could add for close combat maybe let's say a shotgun, if you have a good one lying around, if you have more than enough crafting materials and mods to spend on those, because remember, you would want to keep upgrading those all the time because, well, it's fun. Crafting process is not fun, gathering materials is not fun, at least not for me, but reaching the next level and unlocking the next research schematic so you can develop the next tier of your favorite weapon, that's huge. Very quick preview of what consumables I'm using. Even now, when I play on insanity difficulty, I tend not to lean or depend too much on the consumables. Maybe in some specific boss fights where I die because I don't want to spend those consumables. And when you pile up the credits in later on in the game, you would have absolutely no trouble stacking up huge amounts of each one of the consumables that you like to use. And yes, because Biotic tends to have that weakness I mentioned already, it's a good idea to have incendiary armor and ammo, and disruptor ammo handy. Because I play with a pistol, this means that fairly quickly I reload, and all of these consumables have very short-term effect, but they are not expensive, and later on in the game you'll definitely be able to afford to buy way more of these than you need. In the end of this video guide, I would like to show you some more extended clips with gameplay and demonstrate a little bit more what Biotics is. There won't be commentary on those, so just sit back and enjoy the next few minutes of gameplay as a Biotic Adept profile. If you liked that video, please remember to click on the like button because that would definitely help me out. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do that and you will be notified for all kinds of Mass Effect Andromeda content coming in the near future, among other videos, of course. Check out Vulkk.com, that's my website, for more news, guides, and all kinds of information about the content I care about and the game that I play and enjoy and cover. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Children left.
How about you learn to aim first? You could do better than that.
Trying the emergency channel.
Let's worry about it when we're not being shot at.
Thank you for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video. Click the like button and help me out. Visit my website vulkk.com for daily videos and news. To help me improve and expand, consider becoming my patron with a small monthly pledge. And stay in touch by following me on Facebook and Twitter.